Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Poshek, and I'm Dean of School of the Arts at Irvine Valley College. And I'm speaking to you from a very, very quiet and deserted theater at Irvine Valley College. Even though the theater is deserted, the arts remain vibrant and very much engaged here. This season, we'll be doing a series of streamed and virtual events in music, dance, and theater. And I hope you'll be able to join us for some of these events. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to Exploring Near and Middle Eastern Dance live stream event hosted by Irvine Valley College's Dance Department. This is our first ever live stream event, and we welcome you into our homes. My name is Jennifer LeCurran. I am the chair of the dance department at IVC, as well as a full-time faculty member. And this evening, we're going to be talking with our full-time faculty member, Angelika Nemeth, who has been with IVC Dance Department for the past 17 years and has a wealth of knowledge about Near and Middle Eastern dance forms. Welcome, Angelika.
Hi, Jen. Hello, everybody. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight to share all this with you, and for the first time.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here this evening. I want to let everyone know at home that's watching that tonight you can ask questions in the chats, and we'll be answering any questions that you have for Angelika or myself at the end of our live stream event. So you can put in questions at any time, and then we'll be answering them at the very end of our live stream event. Angelika, tell us a little bit about how you got started. What was your history? How did you get interested in belly dancing? Where did your training take you? And where are you today?
Well, my informal introduction to dance actually came when I was a teenager. I used to watch American Bandstand. Some of you may not know what that was, with Dick Clark. It came out of Philadelphia, and it featured the latest dance moves and the latest singers and musicians. And so I would watch that religiously and practice And then when it came to go to the high school dances, I was out there on the floor dancing. So that was my informal introduction, wanting to perform. Later, years later, when I moved to California, I took my first formal dance class in this beautiful Middle Eastern art form called belly dance with Feiruz Aram. It was at a local YWCA in Long Beach. I fell in love with the dance and became obsessed with it, actually. Everything was new. It was a new culture, a new language, new music, and I had a lot to keep me busy to try to get as good as I could with this dance form. So that's how it started. Feiruz was a very caring and supportive teacher, and she was working at the time in the Fez, a great club in Hollywood. Hollywood was the place where everybody wanted to dance. So she encouraged me, and soon I had my first performance. I made my own costume. In those days, we made our costumes. We didn't buy them from Egypt or somewhere else. And I was hooked. After that first performance, I knew I wanted to do this professionally. So I started auditioning in the clubs. And I did get hired. I think probably at first because I was young and cute. My dancing did improve, but it was just such an exciting time. I was constantly, there was always so much to learn. So I was constantly researching. I kept studying. I watched a lot of films, videos of Nagwa Fouad, the great Egyptian dancers, Seher Zeki. And then eventually I did get to Egypt, and I've been there now a number of times because for this dance form and this generation of dancers, Egypt was sort of the Mecca, and that's where everyone wanted to go, to the source. So about 20 or so years into dancing professionally, I danced in the nightclubs with live music, which was really a treat. I did the nightclub scene from about in the 1980s all through the 1990s. And then I was very fortunate because not only did I have that nightclub scene as an artist, I was also able to do concerts because I was teaching at that time at Orange Coast College mostly was my first opportunity. So the first video that we're going to see tonight is about after 22 years or so of performing. This video was taken at a show. Every year there is an annual belly dance competition event called Belly Dancer of the Universe, and I am a judge at this event. So the first video is from that event in 2002. I am doing a solo, and I am sort of doing a mixture of American style and Egyptian Lebanese because I'm using the veil a lot, which was sort of traditional for the American style of belly dance. So please enjoy my performance at the Belly Dancer of the Universe competition.
Wow, Angelika, it's always such a treat to see you perform, even if it's just on video. After seeing that solo, I can clearly see how music plays a key role. And knowing in general in dance that dance is one of the only art forms that relies on another art form, music, to really get across its point of view and what we're trying to share. But I think that's particularly important with Middle Eastern and belly dance. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the connection between music and dance are for this genre?
Well, you're so right, especially in this dance form. Um, Basically, my job as a dancer is to make the music visible to you, the audience. So it's every part of my body and my expression has to relay that musical experience to you. So it's really important that I understand the music because Middle Eastern music, as I said earlier, it was a new medium for me, new instruments being used. There's the oud and then violin and the qanun, these amazing instruments that I had not heard before. But as a dancer, the first thing I listen to before I get on stage is what is the drum telling me? I need that drum to know how I'm going to enter the stage, what kind of movements I'm going to do with my hips. So I realized pretty early into my career that I had to learn how to drum. Now, I wasn't planning to become a professional drummer, but I did need to know all the different Arab rhythms. I needed to know where the heavy and the light beats were in the music because there are very specific things that we do when the beat is heavy or when the beat is light. So I did. I studied Arabic drum with Suhail Kaspar, and I also learned a lot from Hossam Ramzi when I had a chance to work with him in London. And I'll tell you, after that experience, I did improve tremendously as a dancer. It's knowledge. I felt more confident. So yes, the music is key to Middle Eastern dance. Also, one other aspect, an Arab audience basically has a prerequisite for a dancer. If she dances and is technically proficient but has no expression, they're not interested. To be a good dancer of Middle Eastern dance or to be a good belly dancer, you have to feel the music and express it in your face as well as your body.
Yeah, we can definitely see that when we watched you perform that solo, that you're feeling that music inside of your body and movement and heart and soul. And I do think live music is an important aspect. I know at IVC, several classes that you teach each semester, we make sure to include live music. I know that that seems to be something that really helps connect the dancer to the music on a different level than just using recorded music all the time.
Definitely. The generation of dancers that I represent, we were very fortunate when we started working in the nightclubs. For me, especially in Hollywood, it was all live music. I worked with the music from the Middle East. Nowadays, that is not the case. It's really rare to be able to work with live music, at least in the LA area and Orange County area. The learning is tremendous when you have to have that energy coming from you and that interaction with musicians. It's so joyful and it's so exciting to be in the moment because this dance form truly is improvisational at its heart and soul. Yes, we do choreograph things, but really you want to have that spontaneity, and with the energy coming from the musicians, that makes it so much easier to improvise.
Yeah, it is a real treat as a dancer, no matter what genre, to be able to have live music. It definitely changes everything, and it just makes you be more spontaneous in the moment and be able to
Right.
react to what is happening. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, and you mentioned this in your background a little, but performing a dance from another culture, that can be a large challenge. But could you talk a little bit more about that experience for you, and if there's different forms of Middle Eastern dance, or is it just belly dancing? How do you categorize all of that, and what have you studied personally?
Well, as far as category, there is a a great article I read. It was written by a scholar in Islamic music and arts. Her name was Lois Ibn al-Faruqi. She categorized Middle Eastern dance into 4 areas. The first was chain dances, like a depki. The second was combat dances. You have a lot of sword dances, stick fighting dances from different regions throughout the Near and Middle East. And then the third one was ritual. So you have your Sufi dancing, more spiritual. You have trance dances from Morocco, from Upper Egypt, Zar. And then you have your solo improvisation, which belly dance falls under. So all these dance forms, they represent such a rich variety. I mean, when you talk of the Near and Middle East, we are talking of a huge area, huge, and so many regional dances. And I wanted to study as many as I could. I mean, I did study some Tunisian dancing, and I studied different regions of Egypt, more folkloric. I did some depki. And then I also got very interested in Persian dancing. Persian music and dance is very, very different from Arabic. Iran has a rich culture themselves. But I also took some formal dance classes in Persian classical dance. My first one was with Leona Wood. She was also a mentor of mine for a while. I respected her tremendously. And the other aspect of Persian dance that I fell in love with was a kind of, it was about a folk hero, Iranian folk hero called Baba Karam. It was a really funky dance, more street smarts kind of dance. And if you ever go to a Persian party, eventually someone will get up and do it. And I went to some Persian parties and I wanted to know how to do it. And so I actually learned that from Persian women who took my class, actually my students. Some of them were very proficient in it. And so I got to study with them and learn that aspect. So the study is endless when you are thinking of this area of the Near and Middle East, definitely. I know that the next video that we're going to be watching highlights this interest that I had in Persian dance. One of my mentors was also a woman who just walked into my class one day, and she was retired, and she wanted to take belly dance. And then pretty soon I realized, oh my God, this is an amazing woman. She has so much talent. And she stayed with me for many years. We became friends, and she was actually a vaudeville dancer. She had danced during that time, had her own dance company, and then she also did Spanish dances and flamenco. So she became a dear friend and mentor of mine. Her name is Dorothy Hefner, and she actually helped me choreograph this Persian dance that I put together. We did this dance for my dance company, and I wanted to include both of these aspects that I had learned, some more of the classical Persian, which is more arms, face, very little hips at all. And then I wanted to also put in this very funky street dance, Baba Karam. It's a man's dance, but women also do it. And when they do it, they have to wear things that signify these guys. They have to wear a fedora, and they usually have a white shawl. And of course, in those days, the men had these big whiskers that they would play with, and they were very important. So this dance that the guys did was about working class guy. He works hard all day, and in this case it represents a baker making bread. And then when he's done, he puts on his hat, puts his scarf around his head, and he goes to the local bar. Nowadays not, but then yes. And he has some vodka, and then he starts to dance. And he does this really funky, earthy dance. So I wanted to incorporate both of these. So Dorothy did mostly the men's part, and I did mostly the women's part. And we performed this dance I call it Eshvay because Eshvay in Farsi means flirtation, the art of flirting. And this is a big part of the women's. They flirt with their eyes, with their lips, with their looks. And so that's a big part of it. And it was really interesting. This particular choreography ended up winning an award. And whenever my company was asked to perform somewhere, this is the choreography they always wanted the company to perform. So our next video will highlight this. And oh, one more thing. We got lucky and we were able to perform this in the iconic Ford Amphitheater in the Hollywood Hills. So please enjoy Eshvay.
Wow, I really loved seeing the hat and the scarf, the mustache.
Attitude.
I know all of those details you talked about. And what's so amazing too, you'd mentioned that that performance was able to be recorded at the Ford Theater. And I myself have been in the audience of the Ford Theater, and it's such a magical space, outdoors, carved into the mountain. It's got the dual level with the stairs. So
Right.
it separates the performance and just gives the piece a whole different look than maybe a traditional theater venue would. Could you talk a little bit about the opportunity to perform in that space and what that was like for you and your dancers?
Well, my dancers were on the stage, so they were the
Yeah.
ones, but I got on the stage as well, and just during our rehearsals. It's magical, as you're saying, because you're in the Hollywood Hills, it's summertime, and under the stars. It was absolutely beautiful, and I hope we can get back to that again one day. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really special. Yeah,
it is
very.
such a great venue, and it's such a great opportunity that you got to see your work presented in that
Yes.
venue. And I encourage any of the people watching, if you haven't been to the Ford Theater, check it out. It's got a beautiful entryway and performance venue. So go out and support our local Orange County and LA venues right now when things open back up, because there's some magical stuff out there. So, Angelika, I know this mentor that you co-choreographed that piece with had come into one of your classes. So I'd like to touch a little bit about how teaching has affected your career, because I know it's been a large part. You still teach. And
Yes.
could you just talk a little bit about your background in teaching?
Well, I was sort of in the right place at the right time. When I came from Pennsylvania to California and took this belly dance class, and got involved in the Middle Eastern dance scene. Um, After about a while, my teacher, Feiruz, she went to Egypt on a sabbatical, and she had been teaching at Long Beach City College. And so she asked me if I would like to fill in for her. And as I said, I was in the right place at the right time, and I had a teaching degree. So I was hired, and that started my career in teaching at community colleges, which has been a blessing, such a blessing for me, and I hope for all the many, many students that have come and taken classes with me. I started at Long Beach City College in the late 70s, and soon thereafter I was hired onto the dance faculty at Orange Coast College. And at that time, belly dancing was hugely popular. So I think that's why they hired me, because the dance faculty was not necessarily thrilled that I was hired, because at that time there was sort of a negative attitude about this dance form. The dance form basically was misunderstood. So I was not asked right away to be in the concert. My students weren't asked to be in the concert. So it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I ended up creating my own venues for the student recitals, and little by little, I got better at doing these things, and pretty soon I was renting out bigger and bigger halls on campus, and then eventually they took notice of what I had been doing and asked me if I wanted to produce something in the theater, the Robert B. Moore Theater, which was, wow, that was 1,200 seats, so going from a small little venue with 200 to 1,200, I at first said no, and then I thought about it, and I said yes. And being able to then produce concerts and take it to another level. Yes, I was in the nightclub, and that was exciting and great, but not everybody would go to these Arab nightclubs. But now I'm on a big theater stage, and I'm on stage with other dance forms, ballet, jazz, modern. And so people get introduced to this art form, Middle Eastern dance or belly dance, with whole new perspective. They're seeing that, yes, it is artistic. Yes, it is very sensuous, very beautiful, and they start to fall in love with it. And they take classes, and it just makes for a much broader audience and an education. So I felt very, very fortunate that I could do what I love and do it on this other level. And I guess I've been now in the colleges. I guess it's going over 40 years, which is amazing to me. It's really amazing.
Well, we are very blessed to have you at IVC, and I know you teach a class usually every semester for us in Middle Eastern dance, and you teach at several at OCC and some other venues throughout Orange County area. So if you're interested, you can always check out Angelika and take a class from her. I wanted to just bring up or remind our audience that if you're watching and you have questions, please put them in the chats on YouTube or Facebook so that we can answer them at the end. And we'll get around to those after we watch our last video. Angelika, hearing you talk about your training and such led me to just think about how over the span of your career, so many things have changed in history and political things, and how art and politics can be tied together. We can use art to inform or remember things that have happened. And I was just curious if you've found any particular changes that have happened throughout your career with how politics have affected Middle Eastern or belly dancing.
Definitely, especially in this dance form. I'm thinking of two very, very horrific things that have happened politically that had a direct influence on Middle Eastern dance. Let's go back to 1979, the Iran hostage crisis. After that happened, here in the United States, most of the Middle Eastern restaurants and nightclubs closed. There was no business. People didn't want to support them. Even though this was happening in Iran, in general, at that time, the American society at that time really didn't differentiate that much between, oh, this is Iranian, this is Arab. Now they do, but at that time, no. So it affected the entire Middle Eastern dance scene. And slowly, after things settled down, the hostages came home, things got a little bit back to normal, but that had a huge impact. The media started spinning the Middle East in a sort of negative way. And then another huge political situation, of course, was 9/11 in 2001. And again, it had the same impact on the Middle Eastern restaurants and nightclubs. Interestingly enough, it did not affect the teachers of Middle Eastern dance as much, like in dance studios and community colleges, community centers. Women love this dance form, and so that didn't stop them, thankfully, for at least wanting to study it. But it did affect the restaurants and the nightclubs, definitely.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we forget that political things can affect culture and how culture is perceived, especially when it's not, that country's culture, but how people are relating and feeling comfortable with other cultures inside of a country. I hope in the future things continue to stay more positive for Middle Eastern dance, because it is such a great thing to be able to share that in the restaurant scene, especially knowing that it's history. Well, that's where you got your start. So for your students to be able to have that experience in the future is I think, important.
Well, it's become, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, this dance has become it's global. They do this everywhere in the world. So it's not so much so tied to just one specific culture, although I look to that culture for inspiration, in my case, Egypt. But this dance is performed in China, in Russia, in Vietnam, in Australia, in New Zealand. It is global, and that's very good. And in some ways, it's also what we'll talk maybe about at the very end that is maybe a slight bit troubling in a way as well.
Yeah, it changes things, right? When things
it
go global,
definitely does.
it changes where what the heart of it is, and
Yes.
how it's perceived by everyone. The last thing I want to ask you before we go into our final piece that we're going to watch this evening is just to talk a little bit about how your choreographic skills have evolved, and just briefly talk about that before we go into you telling us about the last work we're going to watch.
When I started, I had very little choreographic skills. And again, this dance is a solo improvisational dance. So I didn't really need to choreograph as much. And the other thing I learned rather quickly after getting involved in this form, once you know your music, it's really, it's all about the music. It's all about the music. And once you know your music, once you understand the rhythms and the phrasing, you choreograph naturally. You dance to the music. You dance to the breathing and the energy and the spaces of the music. So I didn't really have to do so much choreographing for myself, but as a teacher, I did, because our students want to dance, right? And so I started out, doing the best I could, and I read books. Of course, one of the books that really influenced me in the beginning was Doris Humphrey's The Art of Making Dances, a great book. It's been around a long time. And then, of course, I watched my favorite dances. Why do they work? Why do they look so good, And I learned a lot from my mentor, Dorothy Hefner, who was such a great dancer and had such a great career in dance herself. So all of that helped. And then, of course, repetition. I had to choreograph many, many, many times. You get better and better, and you also, evaluate what you've done, things like that. And I realized in Middle Eastern dance, I didn't want to be so tightly choreographed. Even with my group pieces, I always wanted to leave a little space there for improvisation, because that is just so intrinsic to this ancient dance form. And so when talking a little bit about this upcoming last video that we're going to be seeing, I was asked by a very famous American dancer, Marta Schill. She, at that time, was head of an event in the LA area, greater LA area, called Cairo Carnival. And she asked me to choreograph or put together an hour show for the Saturday night concert. So I did, and I used a lot of my own choreography with my dance company. I also brought in guest artists. And so this last piece that you're going to be seeing is the finale of that show. The show was presented that year. We were at the Santa Anita Racetrack, which was another fun venue to stage a concert. And the piece that I wanted to end the show with, I wanted to put everything in that piece. So we had veils, we had live drummers, we had improvisation, we had choreography, and also little sections of the dance. There's one section with three women coming out, and they do a little tableau, which I was very influenced by Mahmoud Reda and his choreography. Mahmoud Reda, a great pioneer of Egyptian dance. And I saw that in one of his choreographies, and it always stayed with me. So it had many elements, and it ends in a drum solo, live drum solo with musicians on stage, and then the whole thing then ends with a trance dance or a zar. And that is another amazing dance form of the Middle East, these trance dances. And that's another whole topic that we can go into, the whole healing aspect of Oriental dance or belly dance. So this is my dance company, again, with guest artists, and doing a choreography. I called it the Big Piece, and eventually then we changed it to the Casbah Rocks.
that piece has a little bit of everything in it. I love the end with the trance dance. That's my favorite, but the drumming, the cane, there's just a little bit of everything. You can really see almost your whole history that you've talked about, everything,
In a
all
way,
the
yeah.
pieces and the works. It's all put together in that one piece. Wanted to just ask you finally, or actually remind our audience that this is our final time to get some questions in. So we're going to be answering questions really quickly here. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask Angelika, write it in your chat now and we'll make sure we get that answered soon. But Angelika, the one thing I wanted to ask you to kind of wrap us up this evening is, what are your hopes for Middle Eastern, Near and Middle Eastern dance in the future? Where do you want the form to go in your mind?
Well, I love the idea that it's global and that there's so much interest. And I also love the idea that people now have a deeper understanding of what the dance is, and that therefore it has it's gained respect that it didn't have when I started. I would hope that the dance retains its soul, so to speak. And the soul of this art form is that beautiful improvisational style and the relationship to the music. So that the music, it doesn't get too diluted with fusion. So I love the Arab music and the drumming and both the classical and folkloric aspect of it. So I just hope it continues in that way, and that people continue to appreciate it and get a deeper understanding of the cultures that this ancient dance has come from.
Well, I hope that stays true for you and for the hopes of all your students, to be able to experience where the art form's going to go. I'm going to go over to the questions now. We've got a few. The first one I'm going to ask is from Mona on YouTube. She was asking, what year was that last performance that we saw, the large group piece at the end?
2006.
2006. So
Yeah.
still a good deal ago, but it doesn't seem like that long ago. All right. The next one's from Cato List on YouTube. They actually had two questions for you. The first one was, as an American dancer throughout your career, did Angelika ever feel like you had to prove your authenticity, ability, or cultural knowledge to the Middle Eastern community?
Yes, I mean, that is the responsibility that you have when you are a person not of the culture, but portraying that culture. And basically it was being, again, the music. If I'm going to represent the music, I have to understand the music. And the deeper I got into that understanding, the better I became as a dancer. And that's what an Arab audience especially is looking for. As I said earlier, they want you to have a feeling, the correct feeling for the dance. They want to feel that you passionately relate to the dance, to the music, that is, in some way, and that you express it with the proper movements, so that you don't do something weird, that they go, what is that? So it takes a lot of knowledge. As a Westerner, they're always going to be able to see that I'm not from Egypt, or that I'm not from Lebanon, or wherever. And a lot of my colleagues, they had the good fortune to go live and work in Cairo and other places in the Middle East, and that definitely added to their understanding. But I don't know if you can ever really truly become that. You do the best you can, and that is respected. And another thing that really helps, and it's something that I haven't done that well, is to learn the language of the country whose art you're representing. When you learn the language, you learn the people, you learn the psychology. So, and I have taken a class in Arabic. I also have taken a little bit in Farsi, but it's a very deep study. And so that is one of the best ways to really learn a culture, is through the language. So you do the best you can, and people do appreciate it when they see you know the music.
Yeah, you can definitely hear in just hearing you talk that you've spent a good amount of time in researching the culture and history and music and language. And I definitely think that comes through. The other question that they had is a friend who had visited Cairo in 2005 was unable to see belly dancing because the performances were forbidden by the government at that time. Did bans on belly dancing ever hurt or help you throughout your career?
The ban on belly dancing?
Hmm.
Well, we're getting to a larger issue here. Religion and dance throughout history have been like this. Dance is about our free animal spirit. Religion is about controlling our free animal spirit. And when you have governments in charge of a country that are more open minded, dance flourishes. When you have governments in which they have a very negative or disapproving attitude about the physical body moving in space in public, then you have the dance usually goes underground. So throughout the history of this dance form, this has been continuous. When it's flourished, things get too conservative, the dancers are banned from nightclubs, or the nightclubs are burned down. Yeah, so it's a very explosive kind of relationship that is constantly changing, evolving, and we do the best we can.
Yeah, I'm sure. We have another question from Eben on YouTube. Professor Angelika most likely holds this culture's values and traditions dearly. Do these values and traditions, have they changed your perspective of other dance genres or other parts of your life? So, being this influenced by this culture and traditions, has that changed, do you think, how you look at other dance forms?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, part of my life, my two passions, I would say, travel and dance. And whenever you travel or have to experience another culture, you broaden your perspective. It's a mirror. It shows you what you are comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. You start to re-examine or examine who you are, what made you, what are your beliefs. And coming up against all these different cultures with different beliefs, you start to question, you start to analyze and research. Yes, every time I come across another dance form or another culture, I broaden my perspective. I mean, I feel world dance, I feel so fortunate because that's another thing that I am able to do is direct world dance concerts nowadays, and it's a privilege.
I'm going to take two more questions. Sal from YouTube asked, as a Western choreographer, are there something different that you put into your choreography from like a local or native choreographer? Is there
What
anything
are
that would
those
be,
aspects?
or what would be different about your choreographer or your choreography versus someone who is local or native, maybe to Egypt, someone that was in
Well,
that culture?
coming from a Western background, I mean, I watch a lot of great ballets. I watch other dance forms. Uh, I'm not sure exactly. It would depend on how skilled, say, an Egyptian dancer is in creating choreography. Um, Maybe I might bring in more veils. That is definitely more an American introduction to this art form, more dancing with veils. Um, Possibly bringing in more fusion rather than keeping it strictly, say, Egyptian or Lebanese. You will probably see a more, let's see, maybe it's hard to even put it into words. You would see a difference, my sensibility, I guess, rather than staying strictly to a very indigenous culture. However, when I do a piece, be it a Tunisian shabi or be it an Egyptian classical piece, I do my best to honor that genre as much as I am able to with my understanding and my capabilities. But there is a difference, yes. I'm Western. I'm a European Western woman.
Yeah. Our final question for the evening is from Janelle on YouTube. She said, Angelika, you've been very generous and patient and have taught so many people for so long. What do you find most rewarding about your teaching?
Well, hello, Janelle. Nice to hear from you. I think it's all the relationships that I've had with all these many people that have taken my classes. I feel so fortunate to give them this gift, my dance. It makes them happy. I think many of them go out and become teachers. They get to live a dream sometimes of performing, costuming themselves in these beautiful costumes, transforming themselves on stage. I think maybe if I had to choose one word, it is I allow them to transform.
Well, Angelika, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your personal history, your thoughts, and ideas about Middle Eastern dance. We are so lucky to have you on faculty at IVC, and I also want to just let everyone out there know if you're interested in taking Middle Eastern dance, it is on our schedule for spring 2021 here at Irvine Valley College Dance Department. So come and dance with Angelika. But thank you for taking time out of your day, sharing your home with us and all of your background and knowledge. I am very grateful. I want to say thank you to our IVC crew, dance crew, that has been able to pull together our first live stream. And I also want to invite you to join us for our next live stream, which is our IVC Masterclass Series, Community and Identity Through Dance, with our faculty member Cruz, and Monique Jones will be hosting that event. It will be on Friday, October 14th at 7 p.m. as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
you.